Today we'll look at the most direct proof in support of evidence-based forward-looking elimination techniques, the style of elimination which I have always advocated. Let's start. Before we begin, let me just clarify that the questions which we have taken for this analysis are from the engineering services exam that is conducted by UPSC. Right, so let us start with the first question. On the left hand side of your screen, you will see question number 91. This was a two statement question. And just note the first statement. It says all projects have constraints or limitations. So instead of projects, all things, everything has its own constraints and limitations. This is extremely important to understand because UPSC also has its own constraints. Students also have their own constraints, and the coaching industry also has its own constraints. And it is these constraints which define the nature of questions that are asked, right? So whenever I teach elimination, I always tell that UPSC is looking for candidates for civil services exam, and civil service is a career that requires you to be able to make decisions in the field, make decisions under extreme circumstances, emergency situations, right? So you need to be able to bear pressure and perform under pressure and take decisions when seemingly there is no information or enough information to make those decisions. So those constraints are kept in mind. That attitude has to be checked by UPSC, and that constraint, that pressure, that decision making ability, risk analysis ability is tested via the kind of statements which UPSC gives in GS1 paper, right? So that is the reasoning behind the constraints part. Also, if we come to this part, the limitations of UPSC, the first limitation when UPSC will frame a question is these are the narrower limitations. What we just discussed, they are the broader, the career goals oriented limitations, right? Constraints. So when we talk about the more narrow limitations of UPSC, the first one is it has to ensure a level playing field. By level playing field, I mean that there are all streams which fill this form, right? From a Sanskrit graduate to a medicine graduate or engineering graduate, all kinds of people, all kinds of students, all streams are allowed to fill this form. So a question has to be made in such a way that it is equally challenging or equally doable, that is level playing field, compared to for a Sanskrit graduate compared to a engineering graduate or English literature graduate, right? So level playing field has to be ensured. So UPSC cannot form too technical questions or too deep knowledge, deep fact, which will put some kind of students at an advantage and the other kind of students at a disadvantage, right? So those kind of questions cannot be made. UPSC has to ensure a level playing field. And the second main narrow constraint is students usually have a 1 year preparation time. In fact, if we are very strict on this preparation time aspect, UPSC allows students to write prelims even when they are in the final year of their graduation with just a provisional graduation certificate in hand, right? So not even 1 year UPSC says that you need to prepare for this exam, but still taking all practicality into account, we are saying that 1 year should be a good enough time. If a student is preparing dedicatedly for this exam, 1 year should be a good enough time for a full-time preparation student to give and clear this exam, right? So UPSC will not ask anything which requires years of preparation, like 4 attempts, 5 attempts, or years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years of preparation. Those kind of questions have no meaning. The question has to be such that a 21-year-old also faces the same kind of challenge, or the qualities of the 21-year-old also are tested, and 32-year-old also, from general angle, the general category angle, if we talk about, right? So the level playing field has to be ensured and 1 year preparation time has to be taken. So these are the two main constraints which UPSC has got while framing its questions and its statements. So when we are analyzing the statements for probably true or probably false, we have to keep in mind these constraints of UPSC, right? Now come to the second statement of the 91st question. So the second statement says time and money are universal constraints. right? So we are not going into the correctness of these statements because these questions were asked in engineering services exam and they've got their own syllabus, they've got their own objectives. So we are not going into the technical correctness of these statements, but we are looking at the general nature from any job or any career, any exam perspective, whether it is medical service, whether it is any generalist exam, right? CAPF, CDS, medical service will become a little too technical for this, I guess. But any generalist exam, uh, whatever we are discussing, the analysis should apply, right? So time and money are universal constraints. Yes, it's true, right? So this is especially correct from the student's angle and the coaching industry angle. From the student's angle, you have only 1 year time to prepare for this exam, and you've got a lot on your plate. You've got to prepare for mains, answer writing, prelims, test series, blah blah. All so many things are there which you have to adjust in just 1 year of time. And the second thing is money, of course. All kinds of students desire to become bureaucrats, including poor students, tribal students, students who do not have continuous electricity access, students who do not have access to expensive reference books. So the questions that will be made should be such that a general student, a student who has the aptitude for civil services, should be able to clear within 1 year time of preparation, and by reading the basic books which do not cost a lot of money. So we have the NCRTs, we have the PDFs, right? Today any student who has got a smartphone and an internet connection can prepare for UPSC, right? So should not cost a lot of money and should be doable within 1 year of preparation, right? So that means if there is anything which costs a lot of money, that source will not be mandatory for clearing UPSC, right? Naturally. If we look at this second statement from the coaching industry angle, how is time and money a constraint in coaching industry angle? See, the coaching industry's main objective is to earn profits, and that it does through test series, by selling test series. And they will sell, what is the student's mindset? The student's mindset is that I want to write 50 tests, 100 tests. Like, the student is looking at the quantity of the tests rather than the quality. The student has got this uh, belief that it's a knowledge heavy exam, and we can say that this belief is strengthened by the kind of questions which the coaching industry is giving, because the coaching industry has got the constraint of time. Within a span of a few months, the coaching industry aims at giving 50 tests, 100 tests, and in each of those tests it will give at least like 50 to 100 questions, right? So, do you think it is possible for the coaching industry to make UPSC type questions, the questions which do not necessarily test just knowledge, but also your aptitude for civil services? UPSC has got its constraints. UPSC's shoulder is the future of the country. It has to give capable officers to the country, right? So it will make those kind of questions which are testing not just the knowledge, but also stress bearing ability, decision making ability. A lot of other things are there, right? So it will be testing those OLQs, hostel like qualities. But the coaching industry does not have that responsibility on its shoulders. The only aim that coaching industry has got is to maximize its profits, and profits it will maximize. How will it maximize? By giving more number of tests, because the students feel that the more tests they get for the fees, the better value they are getting for their money. And in order to make more number of tests, they have to make, like, 50 to 100 questions per test. It's very hard to make those non-standard questions which UPSC makes. UPSC has to make only 100 questions in a span of 1 year, but coaching industry has to make 5 to 6,000 questions in a span of just a few months, right? 6 to 8 months, we can say that, if we say that test series generally start from Octoberish till May, the month of May, right? So this constraint which coaching industry has got, so many 5 to 6,000 questions versus just 100 questions which UPSC has got to make, quality will be different. It's easier to make questions which are just testing your knowledge, because things are spread you just search something on the internet, you'll find, some random things which seemingly are similar to what UPSC is asking, but the depth is not there. It is just the surface that is similar, but the objective, the way in which UPSC will frame the option statement combinations, or even the one only, two only kind of options, they were different in different kinds of questions, right? Not all such questions had this exact same one only, two only pairs, if you notice in the questions. So there's a reason why a particular question was given by UPSC in that manner, and then the combination of statements that were given. But coaching industry doesn't really look at that aspect. It will just focus on the cosmetic part of it. The question will seemingly be similar to UPSC's question, but that depth is not there. So the student is stuck only at the knowledge level of that question. The student will feel that the question is knowledge based only, and will try to do, those questions via knowledge, and more knowledge dependency only the student is going to have, right? So this is that vicious cycle, the students expectation and the delivery of the coaching industry. So this is that vicious cycle of knowledge heaviness, which is costing students their confidence, which is costing students their attempts, a lot of time, right? So uh, this is the first question. Then if we look at question number 64, the fourth statement, it says, so the question wants you to identify the qualities expected of a manager of a new project. So let us say an officer. The quality is expected out of an officer. Just read the fourth statement for now. It says awareness of jobs completed. So instead of jobs, read PYQs, right? Or the qualities of an aspirant. So awareness of PYQs which have already been completed, that is, which have already been given by UPSC, right? We have questions from 1979. You must see questions from 1979 till 2010 from knowledge angle, and from 2011 onwards you should see them from both knowledge as well as from ET angle, elimination angle, the kind of ET which we discuss uh, in this course. In fact, I have a free course also for this ET, so I'm not saying that you buy my course, but you can watch my free videos, free lectures. You will be helped immensely by those, right? So you have to do these questions from 2011 onwards till 2023 via both knowledge and ET, and from 1979 till 2010 at least via knowledge, right? So the fourth question is saying, how should an aspirant prepare? Awareness of PYQs. Instead of jobs, read PYQs. Awareness of PYQs which have already been asked by UPSC. Then bottlenecks being faced in those PYQs. Here, bottlenecks should be read as the traps which have been laid in the PYQs should be seen by the students, and this I'm seeing mainly from the angle of ET, elimination techniques, right? So if you are aware of the kind of traps, the different kinds of traps, the different kinds of statements which UPSC has given in seemingly similar questions, you will be more confident. You will understand UPSC better. Your mind will be at peace, and you will not be as much in shock by seeing new questions as an unprepared student would be. A student who's just trying to clear UPSC via knowledge will be under certainly a lot of pressure, because knowledge is an open, it's infinite, right? You can never be sure that, or you can never be feel satisfied that you have done enough for the attempt. You'll always feel let me read something more, something more, something more, right? So this is the reason why students fall in that trap of reading 10 sources for one thing. This is why they are not able to do one book 10 times, right? But they are doing one content from 10 sources. So we need to do the opposite. You have to limit your sources, but do them multiple times, because you want to see the bottlenecks, the kind of traps, the kind of information which UPSC has asked in the previous year questions, right? And then funds availability. So this funds availability is the time and money constraint part that was asked in this question 91. Now guys, these questions are from different years, okay? I've started getting these questions from 2023 paper, and the new kind of like the papers in which these kind of questions were asked, I think they go till 2017 if I'm not wrong. So from 2017 till 2023 I've just collected all of these questions. So it doesn't mean that all these numbers which you are seeing, they are from just 1 year. Okay, so all these questions, just take care of this. Then some other things. So the basics of the video are clear. Now let us try to be a little bit faster. We don't want this video to be too long. Okay, so let us see this question 30. What is it saying? This is a very interesting question. Okay, so it says, it asks about professional ethics. So same thing, we can talk about civil services. What are the professional requirements of civil services, right? Or the OLQs, also like qualities of a civil services officer or aspirant. So the first statement says forming consistent viewpoints based on facts. So forming viewpoints based on facts. Yes, this is extremely important. Forming consistent viewpoints based on facts extremely important. We should not be driven by sentiments. We should not be driven by I think this should happen, that should happen, or emotions. We should be driven by objectivity, by facts, right? So this is the stress, why this is the reason why we should do as many times the basic books, the limited number of books, the NCRTs primarily, wherever needed, the reference books, and the last 1 year current affairs, just the awareness of the current affairs and the PYQs as many times as possible. So it has to be, your opinion has to be based on facts. Okay. The second statement says searching beyond the obvious. Now this is where your elimination will come. Whatever seems to be too obvious, right? What an unprepared student is going to mark. For example, UPSC plays with psychology also in the exam. So it will give some question which seems to be such that, the most unprepared student is going to mark that option, but that statement which seemingly is correct, the student will feel obviously this statement is correct, right? So such statements which seem to be obviously correct are actually incorrect. So UPSC plays with psychology also. So you have to go beyond what is obvious. You have to think, you have to analyze, you have to feel the vibe, the energy, the objective of asking that question in that particular way, right? So you have to go beyond the obvious to mark the answer. You have to be open to alternative responses. You have to be receptive to creative solutions, right? Creativity. So our style of elimination focuses on, not just marking why a statement is true or false, just the true or false part of the statement, but also why is the statement given in the way it is given? Why is it probably true or why is it probably false? This is done in the context of based on facts part, the analysis of the PYQs. Similar questions we'll see in the past, the statements, whatever in those questions, they were correct or not, were they preparable or not, right? The constraints which we saw, time, money, the other constraints, right? UPSC 1 year preparation and the other one. So when we combine all of these things, we are able to see certain things which the formula based elimination techniques can never see, because the formula based elimination techniques focus on the hindsight, right? Some questions came, we have their answer, we'll just get some similar statements and we'll see the answer, but the depth, the constraints of UPSC 1 year preparation, time and money, all of those constraints are missing. So they'll work in the hindsight because they have been developed by looking at all those questions. But the moment UPSC changes what was the trend in those questions, that formula will not work. That is why you today feel that the formula based elimination techniques are not working, and this is absolutely correct. The reason, as I've told you, they are not having deep roots, which our style of elimination has got. We are focusing on the constraints also, not just on the statements being correct or false. And then you can see the third statement, which says different views, right? Comprehending, assessing, being receptive to different viewpoints. So if you have only this viewpoint that I will do everything via knowledge only, knowledge is everything, I'll prepare, I'll study everything, you don't have you are preventing yourself from having the different viewpoint that such and such questions could be done without knowledge also, or partially some knowledge whatever is given in the books. Over and above that, that knowledge must be used, but over and above that, some logical thinking, some connecting the dots and arriving at the answer, taking some calculated risks, right? So you are preventing yourself from developing that personality trait. So you have to be open to differing views. This is why our style of elimination is producing such brilliant results. Next, if we see question number 68, just look at the Charlie option, the C option, C, Charlie is C. So it says inability to see fresh perspective. Again, see these two questions, 68 and 30, these were asked in different years, but the stress of the statements is on similar things. The ability to see different viewpoints, fresh perspectives is an extremely important trait of 21st century civil services officer. Just knowledge, this is not a clerical exam. It's not expected that your job will be to just give knowledge for making decisions to your superior. That is not your job. Your job will be to go to field. Your job will be to lead your men, right? So you have to have fresh perspectives. You have to be open enough to accept suggestions or listen to suggestions of all different kinds of, whatever your subordinates or superiors are telling you, and then make your own decision. So be open, fresh perspective. So this, just single approach should not be there. We have to be open to fresh new ideas, right? So traits of 21st century civil services officer. So look at another question. This was 67. Okay, what is an optimizing strategy? All right. See, you need to have a compromising solution. Sometimes we'll have such questions where like you have to pick between devil and the deep sea, those kind of questions, like seemingly very hard, very unpreparable, very random question, but you want to pick that question, you want to mark that answer, right? So it is like choosing between devil and the deep sea. Nothing will, like, none of the options will seem like making much sense, but then something has to be picked, right? So the least incorrect option, for example, you will go for. So compromise, you have to have this ability of choosing a compromise solution. It should not be, as a civil services officer also, you have to have this open-mindedness of, win-win situation. It should not be that you are only implementing what you think is right. So you have to take everybody on board and you have to move together as a team. So compromise solution. Then strategy of choosing a solution on the basis of precedents. Now, this is where the PYQs come in. In fact, we also saw the significance of traps, right? In the previous this thing. See, bottlenecks being faced. So the traps which have already been put in the PYQs, the precedents. So this is the reason why I always say you must do the PYQs from 2011 onwards via elimination angle at least 5 times. When you have done these questions 5 times, you'll be able to notice these traps better. You'll be able to feel the energy of these questions better, and you'll be much more accurate. And you'll not get perturbed. You'll not get disturbed when something new, something fresh is coming. So our style of elimination is not just formula based or what has happened in the past, but it is rooted in the constraints of the exam, in the objectives of the exam, the needs of the career, right? What things will be tested. Of course, precedents are one aspect of it, and overall this whole combination of things is making it a forward looking elimination course. So you will be confident of being able to deal with any kind of fresh question, fresh statement that UPSC may throw at you, right? So you'll not be under that stress of preparing or doing it via knowledge, or just having like half confidence, it may work, it may not work, like that kind of thing, hit and miss kind of approach we don't favor, right? So I have some examples also here. So let me just show you. Right, so here we have the questions. I've zoomed it a little bit. I hope you're able to see it on your screen. So we have on the left the darker shaded questions. These are those engineering service exam questions where we were discussing the OLQs, the officer like qualities. And on the right, this part, we have the questions from the 2023 civil services prelims, right? So we have these questions 84, question number 6 and question number 7 from the this year's 2023 civil services prelims exam. So let us just see. So the 30th question said that you have to be, you have to go beyond the obvious, you have to be receptive to alternate responses, different viewpoints, right? And then you had this uh, fresh perspective aspect, right? You have to have built that fresh perspective. If you don't have these, right? If you don't have these OLQs of like qualities, how are you going to deal with such question? There are many questions in the exam which can be said to be attributed to these qualities, but just for our reference, we have taken a few questions here, just 3 questions for that matter. And for example, the 84th question, it said, look at the first statement. One of the standard sizes of the national flag of India is X mm into Y mm, right? Is it possible to do it via knowledge? Very hard, extremely difficult to do it via knowledge, because if you are doing this particular statement via knowledge, either it is just a fluke, just your luck that you knew it and this exact information came, or you are consciously preparing such minute facts, detailed facts, that this statement seem to be knowledge statement, standard fact statement to you. But the problem is, if you are preparing these consciously, you will need to do such detailed analysis, such mugging up of such facts for all subjects, all topics, extremely difficult to be done in a 1 year period, right? Again, that constraint is coming into play. So a first timer, a 21-year-old student in 1 year, this kind of fact, doing it via knowledge, extremely difficult, right? Also, look at the way the statement was framed. One of the standard sizes, right? So UPSC is playing with the psychology of the student here. The moment a student sees one of the, right, it's a soft fact, soft way of saying, the student will just assume that this statement is true. The student will not read 600 into 400 or any other aspect. Maybe what the student can look at is the 3 is to 2 part. This 3 is to 2 and Indian, this national flag code, this is something which we prepare consciously, right? So 3 is to 2 will be known. We'll just put, okay, is 600 into 400 3 is to 2? Yes, indeed, it is 3 is to 2. It has to be 3 is to 2 because UPSC is playing with your mind here, psychology here. And you will have no doubt but mark this statement as correct, right? So, but the problem is, this is a false statement. If you look at the answer keys, this is a false statement, and UPSC played with the student's mind here, so that just because the most unprepared student is going to mark this statement as correct, UPSC gave a very appealing, a too inviting statement, so to say, right? I use this term or this technique, so to say, too inviting or stupidly simple, these two terms very often. So, this was a too inviting statement, which will be very difficult for any student for that matter to just pass. And most of the students who got this statement wrong would have marked, or this question wrong, would have marked this first statement as correct. But UPSC played with the mind of the student here. This statement should be incorrect, because the most unprepared student is going to mark it correct, right? So that psychology is coming into play. So fresh perspective is needed for such questions, right? Otherwise, these are pretty difficult questions. If you're doing via just knowledge, uh, these seem to be pretty hard to do. Okay, look at the next question. We have question number 6. Ilmenite and rutile, never heard, right? Never heard. Abundantly available in certain coastal tracts, right? So the moment it is saying certain coastal tract, that means it's a non-standard resource that we are looking at. Had it said abundantly available in the entire coastal tract of India, then we would have heard about it. If something is abundantly available, we would have heard about it, right? But just certain coastal tract, in certain coastal tracts, anything could be abundantly available, right? So there's a shock factor, there's a unpreparability factor, randomness factor in ilmenite and rutile. The moment you see ilmenite and rutile, an unprepared student is haath khade kar lega, is going to drop the weapon and is going to move ahead. They will not even read the question further. This is the difficulty of this question. They are scaring you by giving these unpreparable, very random names, just like they were pulling you into the question, into that booby trap of the first statement by starting with one of the standard sizes. So they pulled you. This was a booby trap that they put in the first statement of question 84. And again, a scarecrow, right? By giving ilmenite and rutile scary names in the sixth question. But you need to keep your cool, you need to keep your composure. We have a similar question using these words: coolness of mind, calmness, composure, right? We'll look at that question also just a little bit later. So that also is an oval Q. So if you had kept your cool, you could have thought about this question, ilmenite and rutile. Okay, I've never heard these elements, and it is saying certain coastal tracts. Okay, anything could be abundant in some places, right? These are rich sources. Now the stress is on rich source. And you look at the options: aluminum, copper, iron, titanium. Now out of these four, A, B, and C, aluminum, copper, and iron, these are very, very important metals, minerals, right? So if anything is a rich source of these famous minerals, it should be given in our books, right? If these are abundantly available in certain regions and are rich source of any of these should be given in our economic geography NCRT, but nothing of that sort is mentioned, right? So that means if the answer was A, B, and C, we would have heard about it. Because we have not heard about A, B, and C in the context of ilmenite and rutile rich sources abundantly available, what is left is the answer, either whether it is titanium or zirconium or anything else. That doesn't matter. We didn't answer this question based on the knowledge of titanium, but we answered the question based on the knowledge of A, B, and C, right? This is why you need to read one book 10 times. Basic books, standard books. Do not proliferate your sources. Whatever is given in your books, that is sufficient. You focus on conceptual clarity. You focus on reading that book multiple times. Do PYQs, right? No point of running after such facts like ilmenite and rutile are for titanium. Tomorrow UPSC is going to ask something else, right? तो that's a wrong way of preparation, right? You have to keep those constraints in mind. 1 year preparation only, you have time and money, right? You have to keep those constraints in mind. Next, you can see question number 7. It says about three-fourths of world's cobalt. Cobalt again, important mineral. We have heard of it, right? So three-fourths, 75% of world's cobalt is a metal required for manufacture of batteries for electric motor vehicles is produced by and look at the names. There's nothing from India, and these countries, maybe Argentina, we have heard these countries, but then again, how do you answer this question under exam pressure? It will be difficult, right? To do these kind of questions via knowledge, again, pretty difficult. So you need to have fresh perspective, you need to have your cool, your composure, and this question also can be solved. The answer will most likely be Charlie, DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, because when we hear of minerals, metallic minerals particularly, if you have done your economic geography NCRT, the mapping part, metallic minerals are very famous, like the countries of Africa, especially that region, the Rift Valley, African Rift Valley, that plateau region of Africa, very famous for mining operations, right? So, and a little bit of mapping knowledge that Congo is a country in that region. This much knowledge is required, but this is basic knowledge. It's given in your NCRT also, right? This is not very high class, high-fi knowledge. So just basic knowledge, if you have, you can solve this question. So this is like connecting the dots, right? So read one source, basic source 10 times. Keep in mind the constraints of UPSC and of the student, and your preparation is going to be much more efficient, much more accurate, right? So we'll move on to the next part now. Another question which we have seen is this question 67 from the engineering service exam. So a compromise solution, right? Least cost solution, devil and the deep sea kind of choice, or on the basis of precedents, you have to take a call, right? So the reference questions which we have here from 2023 paper, one question is 17. Now this question again was very random, although the kind of information asked in the three statements is very general. Nothing particular, nothing factual is asked, but then again, in exam pressure, doing this question would be difficult. In fact, if we go by the psychology, the stupidly simple or the most unprepared student, right? The most unprepared student is perhaps going to mark all three statements as correct, because the statements are very conceptual, everything we can understand, and the most unprepared student will not think like that. Student will not have the experience of PYQs, the practice of PYQs. That student has not seen the precedents, the traps which have already been laid by UPSC in the previous years, right? So most likely that student is going to mark all three as correct, because he will not have any reason to falsify any of the three statements. And this is the reason why that all three should not be the answer. UPSC will play with the psychology. Similarly, none should not be the answer in these kind of questions. Very random questions with very, very general statements, very understandable statements. None also should not be the answer, because at least some statements should be correct. At least some statements should be correct, right? And if we look at the three statements, the question is about Indian squirrels and they are omnivorous, right? So it's a very formal, very official kind of statement. The other two statements are still a little bit beyond the syllabus, kind of. The first one is saying they build nests by making burrows in the ground, and second, they store their food in the ground. So a little bit non-syllabus kind of statements, but the third one, very syllabus level kind of, general science books kind of question, which your younger books, class 6, class 7, class 8 kind of books talk about. Of course, those books don't talk about squirrels being omnivorous or not, but I'm just talking about the vibe, the energy of the statement. So omnivorous, carnivore, omnivore, herbivore, these kind of concepts are given in the younger science books, general science books. So the third statement has got a pretty high chance of being correct, because to say that they are not omnivorous requires deep knowledge, deep experience with squirrels. And squirrels are generally, normally we see squirrels, they'll just run away, right? The shy creature. So we'll not have that very frequent observation also of squirrels. If somebody has got squirrel as a pet or something, then that will a specialist knowledge, that will be a specialist kind of knowledge, right? Generally you should not be using specialist knowledge or even your graduation knowledge in solving questions. You should limit yourself to NCRTs and the basic reference books. You have to always keep in mind the constraints of the student, right? English literature student, Sanskrit student also will be writing. So do not use, the question will not be for English literature or Sanskrit or engineer. It will be for everyone, level playing field, right? So omnivorous kind of official formal book level statement should be correct. But again, like C and D, none and all will not be the answer. But just one statement also will not be the answer in this question. UPSC has put in such a lot of effort for making two pretty similar statements but separate statements, right? The first and the second are quite similar in their framing, in the effort, in the trap kind of thing, in the vibe, but UPSC has differentiated them by making each statement separate. So very high chance that at least one of these statements is correct and at least and the other statement is wrong. We can, in this particular question, we can even take a guess which could be correct, which could be false, but our job will be done when we can conclude that at least one of these statements should be correct, because UPSC has put in so much time and effort in making these statements and making the traps. So at least one should be correct, one should be false, because both are equally unpreparable, equally random. So one correct, one false, and the third one we are fairly confident should be correct. So two statements are automatically getting correct, right? And the only option here that we have is this, only two, right? If it were a four statement question, and in that case it would be difficult if we had options, similar kind of options. But this is the reason why UPSC gave these options only with these statements and not any other option or any other number of statements, right? So there's all this precedence, all the experience of PYQs, practice of elimination. You have to make mistakes. I always say the more mistakes you make in practice, the more you sweat in peace, the less you will bleed in war, right? The less you bleed in war. So this confidence, this clarity will come the more number of times you see the traps which are already given, the precedents which are already given. So this is why at least 5 times you should do all questions from 2011. If possible, do 10 times, do 20 times. The more number of times you do, the better clarity you are going to get, right? So let's move ahead. Another example we have of the importance of precedents, that is the traps which have already been laid in the PYQs through repeated practice of ET. We have here screenshots from the RDI ET and GS research channel. So the 2023 Series A 21st question was about INVITs. And just look at the structure of this question. It says interest income from INVITs distributed to their investors is exempted from tax, but dividend is taxable, right? So the first statement is talking about two things: interest income and dividend. It is saying interest income is exempted, but dividend is taxable, right? So the broad structure, not the exact analysis of the content of the statement, but the broad structure, just I'm saying. Look at this question of 2022, uh, question 5 of series A. This was about inflation indexed bonds. Look at the third statement. It said interest received as well as capital gains on IIBs are not taxable. So the third statement talked about interest received as well as capital gains. Both are not taxable, while the INVIT's statement said one is taxable, another is not taxable, right? So there is a similarity in the framing of these statements. The trap, the precedent is similar. The third statement is incorrect because it's a deep fact. It's hard for any student to study it to such depth. Only some specialist, only some broker, or some people who deal with these IIBs will have will have this as a regular information, regular fact. But civil services, normal 21-year-old student within 1 year of preparation will find the content of the third statement to be pretty deep, pretty specialist. And specialist, this is not a specialist exam. Specialist information, deep information are generally incorrect. So the third statement is incorrect from that angle. And the same reason the first statement of 21st question of 2023, the INVITS statement, should be incorrect, right? So this is the significance of precedents, the traps which have already been set. Let's look at some more questions of the engineering service exam. And we have question 32. It talks about work ethics, right? Look at the options. We have economy and productivity, safety and privacy, right? Health and hygiene. Just ignore the Charlie option. So A, B, and D, these are the kind of things which we have to take care of when we are looking at random scheme based questions or too detailed questions about some laws, some legislations in civil services exam, right? Very similar question was asked in another year of engineering service. Just look at the first statement. It says engineers shall hold paramount the safety, health, and welfare of the public, right, while performing their professional duties. So it's an OLQ across whatever career you choose. These are basic, commonsensical things which you have to ensure, you have to take care of, right? So overall, when you have detailed questions on seemingly unpreparable schemes or random schemes. So some things which are desirable from this angle, right? Safety, productivity, economy, all of that, growth, happiness, right? Self-respect, all of that. So the things which are desirable are generally correct, and the things which are not desirable are generally incorrect. This very simple funda helps us in random questions which are related to schemes. For example, this Anemia Mukt Bharat strategy, right? These statements could be solved. We are not getting into the statements now. This video is already pretty long, but my point is just to make things clear, the concepts clear, why our ETs, why our style of elimination performs so wonderfully well, because we are rooted in the constraints of the exam. We understand the exam, we understand the needs of the career, and from that root, from that fundamentals, we have developed all these techniques, these approaches, right? Similarly, we had this question 77th of 2023 paper. This question, look at the third statement. uh, According to POTA, Prevention of Terrorism Act 2002, confession of the accused before the police cannot be used as evidence, right? Somebody who has been preparing for many years will know probably this statement via just knowledge also. So, the veterans in civil services exam, 3 attempts, 4 attempts, they may know via knowledge, but general 21-year-old first timer, first attempt student, right, in 1 year of preparation, if somebody is trying to clear, the third statement will be pretty deep for that student, right? So we can use the uh, professional ethics which are mentioned here in the above two questions to solve these kind of questions. Similarly, we have some more questions from the engineering service exams, right? The above two questions. So look at the fourth statement. It says to assess risk in terms of severity of impact, right? So that means if something feels too risky or too difficult, you should not be doing it. That is commonsensical, right? So you need self-awareness of a certain degree to be able to take calculated risks in the exam. Also, look at the Charlie option: attention, calmness, concentration, self confidence, self esteem, right? These are all traits of a civil services officer. You want these kind of traits in your district collector, in your civil services officer, right? So you have to focus, you have to keep these things in mind while solving questions via ET. And these are the things which help you in otherwise pretty difficult, pretty random questions. For example, look at this question 96 of 2023 paper, the 44th chess Olympiad. The moment an unprepared student reads 44th chess Olympiad, हाथ पैर फूल जाएंगे, that student will panic and will leave the question, right? Calmness, attention, concentration is all gone, right? But if that student has practiced the power of, the perseverance, the power of precedence, all of that, 5 times, 10 times practice of PYQs, the traps, they will know that this is a non-standard question. And the moment you see a non-standard question, the whole objective of a non-standard question is to test things other than knowledge. The whole objective of a standard fact question is to test your knowledge, right? Only about 30 to 40 questions in the paper will be standard fact, fully solvable via knowledge kind of questions. But the majority, 60 to 70% of the questions will be testing your other skills, your composure, calmness, concentration, right? Self confidence, all of these, risk taking, appetite, precedents. Have you gone through the PYQ, the constraints? Do you understand the constraints? Do you understand the service or not? Right? All these 60 to 70% of the questions in prelims will be testing these qualities, and it is from these qualities, the analysis, the techniques which we discuss, will be you will be able to solve these particular statements, right? I'm not saying the accuracy will be 100%. 100% accuracy is never there. My accuracy also personally is not 100% in those 60 to 70% of the non-standard questions. But if you practice these questions at least 10 times from 2011 till 2023, your accuracy will be around 80%. 70 to 80% of the questions, of the 60 to 70% non-standard questions, you will be able to solve via ET. Some mistakes will of course be there, will not be perfect. And UPSC also is evolving, right? UPSC will evolve, so we will also evolve. So some mistakes will be there, but you will have enough room to clear prelims confidently. You will not be stressed about prelims, right? Look at the 81st question. 81st question of 2023 Series A paper. With reference to Indian history, Alexander Ria, A.H. Longhurst, Robert Sewell, etc., right? All these different names. These are associated with what? Again, seemingly very random, non-standard question. The moment a question is non-standard, your ET will kick in, right? So these are the kind of questions which test your calmness, your coolness, your concentration, your self-belief, self-confidence, right? Almost every year these kind of questions are asked. In 2022, that Hastimala Bhavbhuti question, Halbi Hokui question was there, right? So very regularly these questions are appearing, and the more we have information available in our hands, the more digitization is happening, internet penetration is happening. So the stress is shifting more and more away from just knowing a few things. Knowledge doesn't matter. Your ability to use that knowledge matters. Tomorrow, when you become an officer, you'll have the best of the people in the world, right? Not just in India, the world, to support you with knowledge. But it will be your job to make decisions, timely decisions, and that will entail risk. That will entail, taking responsibility. You have those qualities or not. So more and more we are shifting. The paper is shifting away from just knowledge requirement to testing these more important OLQs for the 21st century civil services career. So, guys, with this, we come to the end of this otherwise long video. I hope it was worth your time and a little bit of your anxiety about preparing for prelims 2024 has eased now. Also, I'm promising you, if you can work on the ideas shared in this video, if you can read less number of books, more number of times, if you can practice PYQs from 2011 onwards via ET angle, elimination techniques angle, as many times as possible, at least 5 times you have to do, but there's no maximum limit. As many times as possible, if you can do these questions, you will see a huge gain, a huge confidence gain. Also, the ease with which you are preparing, your life will become better. You will be generally more confident, happier, but also in terms of concrete improvement in your marks in prelims 2024. Certainly it will happen. If you wish to join the paid elimination course, the links will be given in the description. I will also have a free course regarding elimination. You can join my free elimination techniques channel. The link of that channel also will be given in the description of this video. Lastly, if there is any doubt in your mind regarding anything that was discussed in this video, or if you wish me to make a video on any aspect of prelims preparation or elimination techniques in general, let me know. I'll try my best to do that as soon as possible. Thank you. Bye bye.